Formula 1's 2025 Constructors' Championship is already settled in McLaren's favour, but further back there is an almighty scrap between 4 teams worth $30 million to whoever comes out on top. It would take an almighty collapse for Williams to lose 5th place now, just as it would take a borderline impossible transformation for Alpine to stop it being F1's worst team. But in between them are 4 teams separated by just 12 points in a battle that has just been blown wide open by Bearman's incredible 4th place finish in Mexico. Each position in the championship is worth just under $10 million to the teams in prize money, and that kind of money matters a lot to every midfield team. Here are 5 reasons F1's $30 million championship battle has suddenly become one to watch. The transformation of Haas is at the heart of this, going from a team that was cut adrift at the back of the grid at the season opener, to a team with a fast car that it kept failing to translate into points, to now being a team that has shown it can operate at the front of F1's ultra-competitive midfield group and claim a big result when the top 4 teams step up. Before this double-header, team boss Io Komatsu told the race of his frustration at how Haas repeatedly let results slip through its fingers thanks to the compounding of small mistakes through each race weekend. Spa was a classic example. Both cars scored points in the sprint race, but when it came to the business end of the weekend, a combination of the drivers narrowly missing Q3, an incorrect downforce level for the race on Bearman's car, a small engine problem, and poor pit stop timing for Esteban Ocon meant 0 points from a Grand Prix where Haas was comfortably fast enough to have both cars in the top 10. As Komatsu put it, the team had been leaking points left, right and centre. He said that's because the team had the wrong mindset, trying too hard to force results and chase races. But in Mexico, the story was different. Haas utilised its latest upgrade to brilliant effect, getting both cars into the top 10 and matching its biggest points haul of the season. For Bearman, it was a 3rd consecutive points finish, as well as a career best result, so he is also showing that not only is the car in a much better place now, but he is converting the pace we all know he has by cutting out the errors. Komatsu puts this progress down to a mindset shift. Bearman showing better judgment in how close to push the car to the limit and driving more within himself, while the team as a whole focuses on executing every single session correctly and not getting carried away with the championship battle it has suddenly propelled itself right into the middle of. Racing Bulls heads this tight group, but there are concerns about its recent form, given it's currently on a run of 3 events without a point. Its worst run of the season has allowed Aston Martin, Haas and Sauber to close the gap. Of late, qualifying form hasn't been a concern. Isack Hadjar qualified 8th for 2 of the last 3 Grand Prix, including in Mexico last weekend, but his race there began to go wrong on the first lap when he had a big moment in turn 6 and lost 3 places. He ultimately lost 10th place to Sauber driver Gabriel Bortoleto in the closing laps, and while his final stint struggles were partly because he had to run on used softs, he's also pointed to a trend of weaker race pace than qualifying pace. While a little Sunday speed would come in handy, there are other reasons why points have been elusive lately. In Singapore, Hadjar would have likely scored but for the reoccurrence of a power unit problem. His crash on the first lap in qualifying in Austin meant he was always up against it there in his chase for points, and although he faded to 13th in Mexico, he did at least come close. Teammate Liam Lawson has had some strong weekends this year, most recently his outstanding 5th place in Azerbaijan before this dry spell. However, usually Hadjar has been the faster driver, and Lawson lacked pace in Singapore by his own admission, lacked the edge when points were possible in Austin, where he finished 11th, then had a terrible Q2 session in Mexico before being hit at turn 1 by Carlos Sainz. But as Lawson points out, when the midfield margins are so tiny, a small lap time deficit is costly. Lawson's appraised the car as being consistent across the board, but lacking ultimate speed. With no major upgrades to come, that piles the pressure on Racing Bulls to find ways to improve its race pace if it's to have any chance of holding on to 6th place. This battle is one in which the drivers will be worth their weight in gold, literally. Bearman's remarkable 4th place moved Haas from 9th to 8th. Bearman's 78 kilos, so at today's prices, that's around $10 million in gold, which isn't far off what a team gains by jumping a place in the championship. With the performance of the 4 teams in this group so tightly packed, that makes execution by both team and the driver potentially the decisive factor. A glance at the point standings for the drivers in those 4 teams can be split into 2 groups, with a lead driver for each team. Nico Hülkenberg for Sauber, Hadjar for Racing Bulls, Fernando Alonso for Aston Martin, and Bearman for Haas in the top 4. However, it's close between the drivers at both Haas and Aston Martin, although Lance Stroll is on a 5-weekend pointless streak. Plenty of these drivers have been able to seize big results as well, with all 8 of them picking up at least one top 6 finish. Hulkenberg finished 3rd at Silverstone, with Hadjar matching that at Zandvoort. Consistency of scoring will be key, but so too will be maximising such opportunities. Last year, Alpine made the most of a wet race at Interlagos and bagged 2nd and 3rd place with Ocon and Pierre Gasly and 33 points, an astonishing 54% of its total for the whole year, and leaped from 9th to 6th in the championship. A haul of that magnitude could potentially give any one of those teams 6th place, and last year it earned Alpine an extra $33 million in prize money. Bearman is currently the form driver in that group, the only driver from the 4 teams to score in each of the past 3 events with a total of 16 points, and he knows very well the value of those points. The drivers also know that they can push up their value with their performances. Alex Albon, who almost single-handedly hauled Williams to 7th in the championship in 2023, will have made that argument very strongly when negotiating his new contract signed the following year. So too could Bearman prove to Ferrari that he's the right man to succeed Lewis Hamilton whenever the time comes, in the same way Charles Leclerc did while helping Sauber in 2018's midfield fire. However, it's going to take 2 drivers to win this battle, and it'll be the team with the strongest performance across both cars that prevails. And in Mexico most recently, that was Haas. Aston Martin is the one team in this mix that should easily be top 5 in the championship rather than hanging on to 7th place by a handful of points. Given the resources at its disposal, the team is massively underachieving. Part of that is surely down to a certain indifference as regards to this season. The focus has mostly been on 2026 and the new rules, getting star technical hire Adrian Newey in position to capitalise on them. Work done to this year's car has been more about calibrating tools and methods for next season and beyond, with any uplift in performance considered more of a side quest than a proper mission. Aston Martin has been underperforming for basically the whole of 2025, according to Fernando Alonso. It struggled badly in Mexico, just as it has every year of this rule set, with Alonso hoping Newey can figure out something for its next visit there in 2026. The peaks have been very good. Alonso was a superb 5th at the Hungaroring and led the midfield once more in Singapore. Though hard to predict, Qatar is likely to be its strongest track of the run-in, but the problem is Aston Martin's lows are very low too, and even Alonso's magic can't get at anything in those scenarios. See out is the slowest car at Spa before beating Max Verstappen 1 week later in Hungary. Even with his pointless streak and Alonso almost whitewashing him in qualifying, Stroll's points contribution is actually at a record high 46% across the 7 years with the Silverstone-based team. Alonso's had plenty of bad luck that partly explains that, and while having 2 44-year-old Fernando Alonsos would have probably allowed Aston Martin to lead this pack, its primary problem right now is its car, which still struggles in low-speed corners and has relatively poor aerodynamic efficiency, especially at low downforce circuits like Spa and Monza. While the Racing Bulls car is stronger on Saturday than on Sunday, the reverse is true of the Sauber. At the start of the year, the Sauber C45 was unstable and unpredictable, thanks to the aerodynamics not being robust enough. While this was dramatically improved with a series of mid-season upgrades that turned the Sauber into a regular points threat, it remains a tricky car to drive on low fuel. That's reflected in the fact it has the least impressive qualifying record of this group, with only 4 appearances in Q3. And Sauber has made the final stage of qualifying fewer times than Alpine. As Bortoleto showed in Mexico, where he climbed from 16th on the grid to 10th, the car has the speed to push into the points, but that always means he and Hulkenberg are up against it in the races. Even when Hulkenberg had his long-awaited first podium finish at Silverstone, that relied on well-timed tyre calls in wet conditions to catapult him from 19th up to 3rd. So while the Racing Bulls is a predictable car at the limit, the Sauber is more capricious. It's capable of rapid lap times, but both drivers have had more than their fair share of qualifying sessions where a few tenths are left on the table, and that can make the difference between a Q3 place and the back row of the grid. Improving qualifying pace is now the main target, given there are no more upgrades before the end of the year, and team boss Jonathan Wheatley thinks that is possible, given the impressive performance gains early in the year show a sound fundamental understanding of how the car is working. If, and it's a big if, Sauber can deliver on that objective without sacrificing much, if any, of its Sunday pace, then it will be a formidable force in the remaining 4 events, as F1's other biggest championship fight is decided.